Hey everybody, welcome back. Quick update on the Mercury. We are in the process of trying to get it a little bit more reliable for daily driving. There's some small stuff that I'm not showing on camera. For example, the ignition switch. There's a box with, I don't know what it's called. There's a slider switch in there that tells the ignition when you're in accessories, on, off, and start. So this box in the steering column, it was starting to spread apart, and it didn't work at all in accessories, and it barely worked in ignition. As a matter of fact, if you hit a decent bump, it would actually turn the car off and you would stall. Always fun to stall out while you're trying to pull into traffic. I took the steering column apart, fixed that. So little things like that, I'm not going to show. We did fix the power antenna just recently. The thing about the Mercury is it's not just go to the AutoZone and buy one of these antennas that are on the shelf, where the radio the radio gives a signal and the antenna goes up and down. So the Mercury actually has a actual switch that you use to make the radio antenna go up and down. So you have to modify some circuitry to make this actually happen, and it's a little bit more than just replace it and put it in and go off and drive. So I wanted to capture some of those details because I wasn't really able to find a convenient replacement where I live, at least, and I'm sure if I can't, somebody else may. These cars are getting difficult to find parts for, certain parts, not all the parts. But as any vehicle from the 80s, you're living in the obsolete manufacturing processes, right? So here's the video on how I got a power antenna working in my vehicle, and here we go. All right, guys. So we're out here replacing the radio's antenna that was on this car. I showed you previously they must have stopped when this thing was fully extended, and it broke off. And just over the years, I think just so much crud and nastiness has gotten in here. It's just locked up. I don't think there's any hope in saving it. So I just kind of cut it out, cut the wires off, and then to get it out of the car, it sits in the engine bay, kind of on the passenger side. It's a little bit of a pain to get to. I just removed this nut here, and then probably easiest, if you can push it down and tilt it like this. You could probably remove this as well, just to get this snags on a couple of things. But if you're just careful and you kind of just do one of these numbers and you play with it and you push in on the plastic inner fender piece, you'll eventually get it out. It's not too difficult. It's just a matter of dangling it and getting it out. But anyways, it comes out. So I cut these wires off, and I was going to go ahead and reuse these two wires here. So on this motor, an interesting thing about this is for this motor to work, how this operates electrically is you apply 12 volts to this wire, ground to this wire, it goes up, right? You reverse that. 12 volts here, ground here, it goes down. Now these things operate off of an actual manual switch located in the car. It varies by year. Mine is 1987. It's by your right knee underneath the steering wheel. Up is up, down is down. And so that's how this particular unit operates, right? So I went to the store for a replacement. Just the regular auto parts store. I think I got it from O'Reilly, right? This is the unit I purchased, just so you can see. It's a 0YPW22 Metra power antenna. It's nothing exciting. Yeah. It comes with a bunch of parts. I still don't know if it actually goes in the car. I haven't done that yet. We'll look at that later. But right now, I just wanted to figure out how it works electrically, right? because that's where we need to understand how it goes up, how this unit now goes up and down, so we can make the appropriate adjustments to what we need to do, if any, right? So the way these ones work, the newer models, the way these work is basically the red is always 12 volts, right? When you turn your car on, it gets 12 volts. That brings, and this black wire gets ground, 12 volts here, brings the circuit down, brings the antenna down. The antenna goes down, 12 volts here, right? There's a limiting switch in here that turns it off when it's all the way down, so it doesn't just keep going and going. Now, when you turn your radio on in these newer cars, you put 12 volts to the blue wire and 12 volts to the red wire. So it's different electrical operation than what we are currently using. So if you put 12 volts here, power the motor, and you put a 12 volts here, you trigger the motor. Basically, you swap this relay and the motor goes up. Again, a limiting circuit. It only goes up so far and then it stops. So that's how these more modern ones units, your radio would provide a 12 volt trigger. You always have 12 volts here, right? Remove this, put a trigger here, it goes up till it stops. Remove the trigger here, it goes down till it stops. But this is always stays powered. So we need to now figure out how we're going to make a swapping 12 volts into a triggering 12 volts. So for us, we're going to be lazy, and you could go into the car and pull out your relays and rewire the switch and the relays, and you can do all that. But I'm going to be lazy. I'm just going to use some diodes, right? So if you're not the kind of guy that just has diodes roaming around your house, I'll show you the circuit and the diode that we're going to use. So before I show you the circuit, I just want to give you a quick actual visual of the unit working, right? So I've got this wired off to just a random piece of, I've got the grounded to just a, nothing fancy, just stuck in under a bolt, right? So again, right, there's a relay that's always powered on 12 volts. There's a switch in here that stops it from going any further. So you won't, it's actually, you can actually see it touching the power, right? And it's not doing anything because the internal switch in here has turned this off. Now this is your trigger. When you trigger, it's going to go up. There you go. And then when it goes, right, so trigger goes up. Remove everything, just like we're going to do with the switch, it stops. Now, when you press the down arrow, we're going to apply 12 volts to the red wire, and the antenna will come down, right? Okay, guys, so here is the circuit that we are going to build to get this unit to work. Now, remember, on our system, 12 volts is applied to the red, and 12 volts is applied to the green, and then the other one is grounded, right? So red is up, green is down, and we are going to use a diode, IN5404, that's in the door, 5404. So what we're going to do is a diode. If you don't know what diodes do, they basically block current flow in a direction, right? So we can apply 12 volts here, current will flow in this direction, but it will not flow in this direction. So we won't ground this when we apply 12 volts here, and it comes this way. We won't go to ground. So that avoids it from basically short circuiting and blowing your fuse every time you try to use the switch, right? And same with the other way, right? When you apply 12 volts here, you're not going to go straight to ground and burn out your up switch, right? So again, burn your fuse. So that's where the two diodes are here. They're for protection of the circuit internal to the vehicle, right? And so this diode, what this diode is doing is, again, we have to apply 12 volts to both wires to get the antenna to go up. So when we press up, the 12 volts comes in here, hits the blue wire, goes to the diode, hits the red wire, antenna goes up. Pardon me, I hit the camera. When you go with when you press down, and you have the green wire. The 12 volts comes in, comes to this intersection, hits the diode, doesn't go anywhere, goes to the red wire, and the antenna goes down. And so this will allow us to operate the circuit without modifying the internal vehicle circuit. Maybe down the road we'll modify this circuit. I don't know how I don't know if I want to do that right now, and maybe get the option down the road to leave the option for down the road reverting back to an original antenna system if I could find one at a junkyard that's actually good and in running condition. So I'm going to leave the internal circuit alone for now, and I'm going to use this diode system. So let's go ahead and test it out. Okay guys, it's kind of hard to see, but we kind of ghettoed in our diodes right here. So this is a basically super ghetto method of checking out that this system's going to work, and we just want to make sure that the circuit's going to work and we have it correct. And so it's just, you know, joint holder in place, right? So bring this over here, and I'll get this set up and attached to the circuit as you saw on the diagram, and then we'll test out its functionality. Okay guys, so it's a little bit hard to see, but remember that for us, red is down, so the red wire is actually directly connected to the down wire, and the red wire, which is the up wire, is connected to the blue wire directly, but through the diode to the red wire. So it's kind of the backwards way of thinking you would wire this thing, but that's how the circuit works. So I'm going to go ahead and step in the car, and I'll check the functionality of our circuit and see if our antenna goes up and down and we can listen to the radio again. So there you go guys, the antenna works. It goes up, it goes down, and it stops when you release the button, which is exactly how the factory unit would operate. So I'm going to claim success. Now the only thing I have to do is actually make this clip connection system into a real actual circuit. All I'm going to use is some butt connectors and crimp things into place and get another connection that goes into here, and we'll put it back in, and we'll check it out for actual usage when we get it back installed into the car. Alright guys, so one thing we had to do for this system is we had to put some extensions on the mounting piece. If you noticed, if we were to put this right next to it, the mast system where it mounts to the vehicle is much shorter, so this would never come up to the top of the vehicle where you can actually mount it. So we put about a 2-inch spacer in here. So if you measure it, it's about 1.5 inches shorter, but this mounts down and into the car, right? So with this piece here, and that would match up to the flush mounting piece on the top of the vehicle. So this one here, this one does not mount flush, right? So it mounts a little bit above the vehicle. The way that this is set up here, get a little better view there. You get kind of see there's almost about a 1/2 inch spacer right there. That's going to have to be on the top to mate with this mounting system, right? So what I did is put so it's about 1.5 inches taller. This is 1.5 inches taller than this. So I put a 2-inch spacer right here,
And then I got some adjustments that I can do to bring it up and down a little bit as needed. And then, so this is a 2-inch spacer, 2-inch spacer here. Got some adjustments. And then we'll get this set up into the vehicle. It's going to be in and out, in and out. It's going to be a pain in the butt. But basically it mounts the same. The only modification I had to do to the original mount here is the way that this one here, actually, it's like this. The way that this one mounts is it screws here, and there's a tab. There's a tab that's punched out right here that goes in this hole. But if you remove the tab, the holes mount in the same location. So this is just an extended piece with some screw heads in it. It doesn't need to be super strong. It just needs to hold the antenna going up and down. That's all it's for. For example, the original factory unit's only held down by one screw, right? So, all right, so we're going to go ahead, install this, and 5-6 times, every time moving these as needed so that it sits at the correct height within the vehicle, and then we'll go ahead and see what it looks like. All right, guys, so this is what the antenna looks like installed. I went ahead and painted the piece of chrome trim piece here black, just so it kind of matches the rest of the mounting system. I think it's in there pretty good, so we'll go ahead and check operation. We still need to actually hook up the RF cable to the radio, but that's a whole nother thing inside, and we'll do that a little bit later. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and check operation that this thing works. All right, well, there we go. It goes up, it goes down, and took a couple times of putting it in and out to get the backing plate that's underneath here the right length, and the mounting, the actual mounting bracket that's down in here. Had to adjust the length on that a little bit. I think I took it out about twice. I took it out 2 times to get that right, to get the mounting bracket right. And then I just had to put it down and up to adjust the, on the other side of this, there's a backing plate that holds it firmly against this, right? So you don't want this just to be constantly springing around on the mounting bracket way down there and this. You want this to be nice and tight against the body panel. But that's it. It's in. Got to wire up the FM antenna, and we'll check the radio, see if it works later. Okay, so we need to take the radio out. So the first thing you do is you pop this, you just pop this down. There's a bolt there, and there's a bolt there. You want to do those 2 bolts. Then this here is just a little guiding hole. This there is just a little guiding hole. And then these are trim clips here and there. And now you just pop this piece of trim off. This side over here does go underneath that piece of trim. So you might need to fiddle fart with that a little bit to get it out. You can kind of see there's a little lip right there. I'm going to, before I install this, now that I know, I will be taking off that piece of trim, and I just don't want to break all this stuff, but that's how you get the radio out. So I'm going to spare you the details, but basically last step in the process for getting the antenna installed is to take the radio out. It's 1 bolt there, 2 bolts there, same on the other side. I'm going to pull the whole stereo out, take out the antenna input, and then the wire goes through the firewall directly behind here. You can trace the old wire. If you're doing yours, you'll see it. It's just basically directly behind here in the firewall. Take that out, put the new one in, and we'll see if we have radio. Okay guys, so we're going to do a quick radio check. We installed the wire that goes into the antenna on the back of the radio. We haven't really done anything else, so let's just see what happens here. We have something, some noise, some static. See if we can find a station. Okay, so we're not finding stations. So, might be able to manually tune to something. I don't know. We're not having any success there. So, the radio itself, I think, is dorked. But we do have, just so you're aware, we do have the antenna fully up. It is working and operational within the vehicle, so it's installed and it does work, but we're just not getting any kind of station here. Diddly squats. So, I don't know. I think the radio's broken. So, there is some work I need to do on the AC system. So maybe we'll go ahead and order a radio and we'll just replace this when we're doing looking at this thing here, because this panel needs to come off again anyways. So till next time on fixing this damn radio.
All right. So an update on the comment I made about the radio not working. Turns out it was the antenna that was not working. So I purchased just an antenna that does that, a non-power antenna, a long time ago, because I did at one point have a car radio in the garage as just kind of like the listening to thing, right? So that was something I did a long time ago as a project just to figure out how radios work. But anyways, I took that antenna that was on that little bit of project and I actually plugged it into the stereo, and we were able to tune to stations. So I do have to go in and actually replace the power antenna now with an actual power antenna that actually works, which we already have. I have to go out there and do it now. It's a couple hours of work. It's not something I can just, undo a couple bolts, pull it out, put it back in. I gotta loosen up the wheel well and move things, and it's a thing, right? So we do have the issue with the radio not tuning solved. It's the antenna that we purchased from the factory was bad. I'm sure anybody who's in the automotive industry is well aware of the situation everybody is in with these Chinese parts. Half the time they're broken from the factory. It is a real thing. I'm not the only one suffering from this. So anyways, that'll get fixed down the road, and eventually we will replace the radio with a aftermarket unit. Unfortunately, this particular car has a very wonky way that they wired it with this amplifier in the trunk, and none of the speaker wires actually touch the stereo. So there's some things we have to play with. We might have to rewire things. It's a real thing. Anyways, that'll happen down the road. I would like a more modern day system in there, even if that's just to communicate over the phone. That's very common. I think it would help with just being a normal daily driver. I can dial into conversations with people before I have to get to work and make sure I've got everything set up, ready to go when I show up to the office. Things like that. It's real convenient to do that. All right. So we're making progress. We're getting there slowly but surely. So far, I haven't been stranded. All right. I'll see you guys next video.